What's the one aspect that you think to yourself, man, I'm seeing this time and time again with security guards, and this is a big red flag?
The biggest one I see, and this is pretty common, is not understanding what you're getting into, right? It's thinking that, oh, well, I'm just gonna make a couple bucks an hour and I'm just in good security, it's not like anything bad's gonna happen to me. They're not paying attention to the world around them. And this job is for trained observers. That means using all 5 of your senses. That means being aware of what's going on around you and the concept like situational awareness. And that's a big problem now, especially with smart devices. Everybody's locked into that phone. And that's not safe, right? I'd say the biggest thing is just thinking, well, nothing bad's gonna happen around here. And that's a common misconception of it. Nothing bad's gonna happen around here until it does. And then you're too far behind the curve. So being proactive, being aware of your surroundings, that's something we try to stress in training, but it's not always being done. And then again, you're working 8, 10, 12 hours a day. So there's a lot of work out there right now. But you have to keep that extra energy to get through that shift and be aware, because it's your job, right? It's your job to protect one's rights. It's your job to do that because other people either cannot do it or are unable to do it. That's what you're being paid for. I think that's a big problem is people think, well, I'm just making a couple bucks an hour, it's just security. It's not just security. It's the protection profession, and we need to focus on that aspect of it, because I think that's one of the biggest problems is the not understanding how important it is that you do your job and that you keep people safe.
Hey guys, what's going on? It's your boy, Atypical Security Guard, here today with another Security Guard Spotlight. Today we're going to be focusing on Doug M. Tollin. Doug is renowned here in the Oregon area as being the go-to guy for DPSST instruction. That is our governing body that oversees security. Doug is an amazing guy. I met him last year when I first moved here. He was instrumental in kind of setting me on the right path with people to reach out to, with organizations to reach out to. He set me kind of on the path to learning about Curtis Blue Line and some of these other outfitters, law enforcement outfitters in the area, people that I've established relationships with over the past year that I think are going to continue to help me and be of benefit to me in the future. But anyway, Doug is a great guy. He's a great instructor, and the information that he shares in this video, guys, it is so applicable. Today I had my yearly armed recertification. I went in, I shot great, 10 times better, night and day from where I was last year. I'll show you guys my qualification here. I'm so happy, and really guys, this all comes down to, you know, me putting training at the forefront of what I've been doing for the last year. It's really paid off. And if we're going to be armed guards, armed training and firearms training and putting bullets downrange on target, that's what we're paid to do, and Doug talks about that. So anyway, I want to go ahead and highlight Doug. Today we shot this on the beautiful Rolling Rock Farm, which is in Sherwood. This is where he holds his class, where he does the lion's share of his instruction. The actual firearms portion was done at Threat Dynamics, but I'm gonna just go ahead and turn this over to Doug. It was a great interview, a great conversation, and Doug has just recently started his own YouTube channel where he can share his teaching and information with people all across the globe. So please, at the end of this, like, share, and subscribe to Doug Tollin. He is an amazing wealth of information, and I'm so happy to have been able to sit down with him today after training. Enjoy. All right, so I want to thank you guys for tuning in to today's episode of the Observe and Report podcast. Today we're here with Doug Tollin. This is actually going to be one of our security guard spotlights. Doug is a DPSST instructor. He is a certified firearms instructor as well. He leads the training for the security guards here in the area. Doug, nice to have you.
Thank you for having me, appreciate that.
Yeah, so hey, give everybody your background, kind of like what you do and what you're running, your company, kind of everything that brought me here to you today.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming back and seeing me once again. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
So, as you know, in Oregon, you need to be licensed through the DPSST, which is Department of Public Safety Standards and Training. Everyone that does security is licensed through that. There's a basic unarmed training course as well as an armed security upgrade. The basic course is a 2-day, 14-hour class. And then the upgrade is an additional 3-day, 24-hour class. And we do both those classes here in Sherwood for professionals throughout the state of Oregon. For your class today, and the one we do now, is a refresher or renewal. So on an annual basis, you have to qualify with a firearm, do a demonstrated skills testing and written examination. That's about a 4-hour course. And then for the unarmed, every 2 years you go through that 4-hour renewal. So renew every 2 by going through a 4-hour refresher and qualify annually as an armed security professional. So every year it's 4 hours for armed, every 2 years it's 8 hours for armed and 4 hours for unarmed. That's a little confusing, I know.
No,
that's
not
the
at
basics.
all.
That's the basics.
What's your background? What got you involved in security?
I started working armed security in 1985, going through Clackamas Community College Security Officer Academy with a guy named Jim Brule. He started that program probably 10 years before DPSST even got started with the idea. But he was kind of forward thinking in that security was going to be more than just staying around rattling doors and, checking alarms and those kind of things. And so he saw the industry growing, and he said, this is going to be something. So I started working armed security at the ripe old age of 18.
Nice.
In Oregon, you used to be able to do that. It's now 21 for now, but that got me started out. I was going to be I thought, well, I want to be a police officer. I want to join the military because right out of high school I wanted to join the military. I'm missing some figures. That's not an option, so I was not able to go in the military. And I needed to do something before I turned 21, and security just seemed like a great idea. It kind of stuck, right? I started. I have an associate's degree in criminal justice from Clackamas Community College. I spent 2 years as a reserve police officer, but I really enjoyed working security. And at the time, it was very difficult to become a police officer, as it is in a lot of places. And so not everybody's going to make that cut. But there's plenty of jobs out there, and there's plenty of work out there for private security professionals. And that's what I kind of followed that footsteps. And I've been doing that for, all over the country, doing disaster response, doing armed security work. It's a fantastic career to be in, and there's really a lot of options out there. I've really thoroughly enjoyed it. And about 1996, 97, right before we started being licensed through the state of Oregon, I found that I was enjoying what I did as a security professional and supervisor and those kind of things, but that I really enjoyed teaching more than any of the other aspects of it. So I became an instructor. I did some instruction before that, but I became an NRA certified instructor and then a DPSST certified instructor for Oregon. And I've been doing that, so I've been fighting crime and suppressing evildoers since 1985 and training other people to do that since 1997. And that's kind of where we're at today.
You have access to so many different security professionals and security guards, and this year being in your class and then being in your class last year, you get such a wide range of people.
Right.
What do you see as the common thread that kind of gels all of these different people into security? You personally said that you had gone out for the police department and maybe that didn't work out for you. What are you seeing as like the one major similarity between all these people? When I'm sitting in your class, we've got men, we've got women, we've got, nowadays you've got openly heterosexual and openly LGBTQ, you've got different people from different races.
Yes.
What do you think is the one thing that kind of is tying all of these people into security?
Well, I'd say that's a very good point. We get people from all aspects of life. It's not just one stereotype, and there's a lot of stereotypes out there, but it's an open employment for anyone that wants to do it. It's an option, whether you're whatever your choices are, whatever your lifestyle, it's open to everyone, right?
Yeah.
Anybody can work in this profession, and it's rewarding. I think the biggest thing is it's the calling that most people have to protect somebody, to protect, yes, for themselves, sure, but maybe to protect other people. Like, primary function, protect lives and property.
Yeah.
Right? That's really, and then once you get that, it doesn't really matter what the uniform is. The construct is still there, the concept is still there, and you're going to want to do that. And so maybe you were in the military, or maybe you're in law enforcement, or you're retired, or you're looking to get into one of those professions, or for whatever reasons you're not doing that. You're probably still going to want to be in that same industry, in that same profession. You're still going to want to help people. That's a really good way to do it. And there's lots of opportunity out there, and it's a universal opportunity for anybody that can do it. You don't have to be the biggest, fastest, strongest person to do it. you know, with some basic training and a good positive attitude and then good leadership, anybody can work in this profession. And the problem with it, I would say, is once you start doing it though, you're just not going to want to stop, right? You're just going to want to do it. And that's something I've always thought of as, I don't ever think of doing anything else. I thoroughly enjoy what I do. And, you know, there's a lot of stereotypes, but it's just helping people and protecting lives and property. That's pretty much what it comes down to, I think.
Do you think that it's hard for people to get past that stereotype of a security guard? Like for someone who, you know, today we were talking and we had one guy who, I guess he's fresh out of the military.
Right.
And then we had some people that were here last year with me that maybe had some aspirations of going into law enforcement and they're still here doing security. Do you think that there's a stigma that people have to get past in order to do this as a career?
Yeah, there is. I think a lot of people have been seeing a lot of stuff on television and internet. It's not always positive. And there's a lot of just misinformation out there when it comes to security and what we do, what we can and can't do, just in the misconceptions out there. And I think going through the basic course, you learn so much about, wow, I didn't even know we could do that, like making an arrest or use of force, those kind of things that you think, well, you're not going to do any of those things. And the value of private security is proactive, right? You're not waiting to get called to go do something. You're out there making citizen-to-citizen contacts. You're interacting with people. You're making those professional contacts and positive contacts. With law enforcement, unfortunately, a lot of times it's reactionary and you're getting there either when it's too late or they're doing the best they can, but they're limited. And when they get there, nobody goes, yay, the police are here, right? And they're always stuck with that kind of behind the curve. Whereas with private citizens, private security, you're proactive. You're not out looking for trouble. You're looking for the precursors to trouble. You're looking for the things that might cause it, and you're stopping before it gets started. And you're making direct connections with people, and you have a chance to really influence that person's life and make a positive difference. You know, I'll have guys that will work out there in the industry, and I'll see folks that are, you know, adversely homely gifted that are out there, they don't have no place to live, and they'll give them a blanket out of their car or something, or they'll have a Ziploc bag with socks or some water or something like that. So you get to see people in all aspects in this profession, good, bad, all of it. So that's one of the things I think is, it's not as often you see that with police. They're only responding to the bad things. With private security, you're there all the time, right? You get to know people, you get to interact with them. You're gonna see them, they're gonna know who you are, and you can really make a difference, I think. And that's something that people don't really see about this profession. They just, you know, but you're gonna get to know people pretty well. That's one of the things I think it really is nice to make those connections.
Absolutely. Well, with today being firearms training and certification, I want to kind of talk to you a little bit about armed security. You know, we're joking in here, but I think that it was a valid point that you brought up, and that was the absolute struggle of being an unarmed officer. What is your thought behind doing unarmed security versus doing armed security?
You put a guy or a gal or a person out there to shoot me first shirt with no way to protect themselves and no body armor and think that's a safe thing because you're living in a place where theoretically there's nothing bad, but reality is people are getting shot and stabbed, knives and needles, all kinds of stuff happens out there that doesn't make the news every single day. We've had more than a few examples where unarmed security professionals. Matter of fact, last year I think we had one or maybe two officers that were not just assaulted, one guy was kidnapped. So it's not safe. People think, oh, it's safe, nothing bad's gonna happen. It's not a safe place. And you unfortunately, there's a misconception that, well, nothing's gonna happen to you, right? You put somebody out there with no way to defend themselves and no way to protect themselves, and then a policy that makes it very difficult, if not impossible, to do those things. It's dangerous, right? It's dangerous.
Yeah.
It's not the safest job. I mean, we all know that going into it, but giving people options, giving them options and giving them training as far as equipment and tools and that kind of thing gives you just that options. With no options, you're limited. And some of that sometimes that can be very dangerous.
You know, we also were doing our shooting today at Threat Dynamics, which is a phenomenal facility, and I actually did purchase that membership today.
Oh, fantastic.
With the
Great.
Spartan Elite package, went ahead and splurged.
Nice.
But, you know, we're talking about the naivety of people who are choosing to work as an unarmed security guard.
Right.
But then I think that that also has to be kind of counterbalanced by also talking about the naivety of people that are doing armed security and maybe not taking advantage of training opportunities.
Right.
What do you say to the armed security guards out there that maybe aren't utilizing a place like Threat Dynamics, or not getting to the range, they're not dry firing? What do you say to those guards that right now are maybe not taking those proactive steps to get the training necessary to be a good, secure armed guard?
So if you're working armed, you're a professional. That's what you do for a living. You should be good at that. It should be embarrassing if you go to the range and the guy next to you is just plinking out shoot you. You should be good at what you do. You're being paid for that. That's your profession. Be good at what you do. And that means you're gonna have to practice. That means 50 rounds a month. If you can't get to the range to do live fire because there's no ammunition, I understand, then you're gonna have to have a safe bullet stopping aim point, triple check, make sure the gun's empty and loaded, do that dry practice, seek additional training. Don't just let it stop at the state level, because the state sets a minimum standard for a reason. That's the low bar. It's not a high bar. It's set at a baseline so that everybody can meet that basic standard, but then you as an officer have the responsibility to level up, right? You need to get better so that you're proficient and that you practice. You've got to practice. It takes commitment. And it's not just about X amount of dollars an hour. It's not even about the money at all. It's about being good at what you do and being a professional. And that's more than just showing up and putting in a qualification once a year. That's a commitment to being able to protect yourself or someone else in the gravest extreme when there are, it's life and death. And that's something you have to practice, and you have to be proficient with that. And since that's literally what we do for a living, you should be good at it. You shouldn't just be adequate and kind of limp in, or you shouldn't worry about, I don't know if I'm going to qualify this month or not. That should never be an issue. You should always strive to get better, seek additional training, right? There's lots of resources out there for people. Go to channels like yours and other places, look at those things, find some resources, and spend some time investing in yourself, in your training, and being a professional. Those are my thoughts.
Outstanding. So right now you were talking about your entry into security and the security industry back in the 80s.
Yes.
We're coming out of 2020, and specifically here in an area like Portland, things are so just absolutely turned upside down.
Right.
What are your thoughts on security in terms of the security industry after 2020? What kind of things do you see coming our way? What kind of changes, either positive or negative?
Well, I think the positive is that there's opportunity to really expand the industry and to grow where we see a loss, where we see people needing help, right? There's people that want to be safe and they either cannot or won't protect themselves, or they can, and they're looking for help for that. The police are going to do everything they can. I mean, I know there's a lot of negative publicity for law enforcement, but I've met a lot of police officers, I've been around a lot of police, I've got friends that are police officers, and they're some of the nicest, greatest human beings I've ever met. And most of them will do everything they can to help people. I mean, they're going to do their level best. It's so frustrating because they're just getting vilified, and most of them, the vast majority, are really good people, but there aren't enough, right? We talk about cutting the amount of police. That's not a great idea. I know we have to have some discussions on a lot of things. I think that's important. We have an open discussion about a lot of aspects of the industry for police, but for private citizens, private security, protecting private property has been something we've been doing since forever. I mean, it's one of the oldest professions, right? You want to be safe, you either do it yourself or you hire somebody else to do it for you. It's pretty much how it works. That's the first contract, and we've been doing it ever since. So there's a lot more aspects of that. It's a lot more work, but it's probably never been more dangerous than it has ever in my career that I can see now. And that's not just because of things like a global pandemic. There's a lot of other aspects of that. Yes, 2020 was rough for everybody, but it's a bigger picture than that. We're seeing things change where the old idea that observe and report's gonna get it done, just by calling the police for everything. And you can't just call the police for everything. I mean, yes, if it's an emergency, call the police, or if it's part of the discussion or a policy, yeah, but the problem runs into is when we call the police for everything, it's sort of like Peter and the Wolf, right? The police want to kind of help us, but if you keep calling them for things that we could very easily do without necessarily requiring them, they're doing our job for us in many cases. And at the same time, we're not there to be police officers. There's two separate pieces here, and we can both work very closely together, but it's got to be kind of a team effort. And there's kind of sometimes that sibling rivalry sometimes. I get that.
Yeah.
But with private security, there's a lot more opportunity out there than ever before. Like I said, it is more dangerous for sure. And I don't know exactly where it's going right now. There's been a lot of changes in the law in Oregon that significantly changed what we can and can't do and what's happening in the world. So yeah, some of that's good, some of that's positive. Some of it isn't, but that's kind of the idea.
Doug, one last question. What do you think is the biggest glaring discrepancy that security guards are not being aware of? When you're teaching these classes and you're working with people and you're running your security business that focuses on training, right. What's the one aspect that you think to yourself, man, I'm seeing this time and time again with security guards and this is a big red flag?
The biggest one I see, and this is pretty common, is not understanding what you're getting into, right? It's thinking that, oh, well, I'm just gonna make a couple bucks an hour and I'm just in good security, it's not like anything bad's gonna happen to me. They're not paying attention to the world around them. And this job is for trained observers. That means using all 5 of your senses. That means being aware of what's going on around you in a concept like situation awareness. And that's a big problem now, especially with smart devices. Everybody's locked into that phone. And that's not safe, right? I'd say the biggest thing is just thinking, well, nothing bad's gonna happen around here. And that's a common misconception for everybody. Nothing bad's gonna happen around here until it does. And then you're too far behind the curve. So being proactive, being aware of your surroundings, that's something we try to stress in training, but it's not always being done. And then again, you're working 8, 10, 12 hours a day. So there's a lot of work out there right now. But you have to keep that extra energy to get through that shift and be aware, because it's your job, right? It's your job to protect one's rights. It's your job to do that because other people either cannot do it or are unable to do it. That's what you're being paid for. And I think that's a big problem is people think, well, I'm just making a couple bucks an hour. It's just security. It's not just security. It's the protection profession. And we need to focus on that aspect of it because I think that's one of the biggest problems is not understanding how important it is that you do your job and that you keep people safe. All right, it's all over the shirt. Be safe out there. Go home safe at the end of your shift. Keep going. Do your job and be aware of what's going on around you because most people aren't going to.